channels of drums in the mix. So come on in, let's hang out, let's make some music. I'm gonna take off the sweatshirt. And actually, we figured out yesterday, 33 channels sounds like a lot, but if you're using drum racks in Ableton, you could easily have 33 sounds in one drum rack. Or if you have more than one drum rack, it goes up from there. Some people make 128s, where you've actually got 128 samples in a drum rack. And if you click the triangle on the top of the mix window and expand that drum rack sideways, all of a sudden you can have a lot of sounds, a lot of samples in there. So don't be intimidated by the high track count. It's not really a big deal. We're gonna be doing some grouping, and the main topic of today is gain staging and how to use your meters so you know what sounds are at what level. You can find everything in the mix, you can hear everything in the mix, you're not forgetting about channels that get lost entirely, and you can make it all sound good. So let me get my, you know the deal, my little monitor window so I can see your questions. And I'm gonna start off with an answer for Patrick in Sweden. And by the way, this track is from Mats Moreland. Thank you, Mats. Sorry you can't be on right now, but we're gonna go on some review on the weekend. If I can just do drums today for like a half an hour, that'll be solid. And then on Saturday or Sunday, we can look at the whole synth group, put the whole package together with low end, percussion, synths, effects, how we get the whole thing into one track, and that'll be good. So where are we here? Click to expand. How we get the whole thing. All right, cool. Eric Morales, oh, Patrick's here, cool. Let me check, okay, Patrick had 2 questions from mixing. First question, if you mix in mono, what do you do with effects such as reverb, delay, etc.? Answer, when you mix in mono, I put effects on my aux returns. And honestly, the topic of mixing in mono, I don't even bring effects into that question. The point of mixing in mono is to get your bass in the right place, to get all the sounds in your mix into their own frequency ranges, and make sure that, like, let's say you have piano, lead synth, and a bass line. I want to hear those in mono and make sure I can hear each instrument when it's in mono. The effects come later. Honestly, I never really worry about effects in mono. Unless it's something like putting a phaser on a bass, then I want to check the mix to make sure that the bass volume doesn't drop when you collapse it to mono. But for effects and everything, it's kind of the same thing. I mean, you just put a mono plugin on the master channel, put your effects up loud enough that you can hear that they're there, and then don't worry about it don't worry about like if the effects are mono or not. Because basically what usually happens is when you go to stereo, the effects sound better, so you can have them a little quieter. So the only danger is with your reverbs and your delays is that if you're mixing only in mono, you might end up putting your reverbs up too loud, because when they're in stereo, suddenly they fit better and you don't need as much of it. Hope that answers your question. Part 2. If you make stems for mixing, how do you do it with effects and automations? So, oh, Alex, what's happening? You're watching the live from Tuesday. Cool, glad you're here. So, Patrick, when you're exporting stems, what you want to do is export every audio channel in the mix. So let me go to Ableton, and here's my session, right? If you look at the overview up on top, those are all stems. There's like a bunch of them. We don't need to see the overview. So what I do is, select all. That's going to give me the whole range of the session. Shift Command R to export. Go to rendered track. You can do all individual tracks, and that will give you everything, including your aux returns. So if you have your effects on aux returns, you're going to get an audio file with the output of whatever is going into that aux, including automation and effects and everything. So for example, in the track we're mixing today, we've got all the pink channels are drums. They are pink because I want to make sure I can see them quickly. And for example, drum verb. Here we have 4 channels, 4 audio stems from different reverbs, where we were, let me make sure it's not going to blast your head when it plays. Come here. Let's go to a section right here. Drum effects. So now you can hear we've just got only the reverbs coming in. I'm going to hit something else in a second. Some claps and things like that. And that's great for me because now as an audio engineering mixer, right? I'm not doing creative production. I'm not doing sound design. It's not my song. I'm not changing the song form. I'm just taking what the guy gave me and mixing it. Now I know these are the reverbs they wanted, and I can basically just use these reverbs as printed audio stems I don't have to go and put new FX on it. The only problem that might happen is if I hear a reverb that got badly recorded with crazy distortion that's not supposed to be there, I might ask the client or the friend and be like, hey, is that what you wanted to have happen? And if they say no, then maybe I have to replace the reverb or something. But basically what you want to do is just select all your audio channels, export a different audio file, including the automation and everything. But if you're sending a track, if you're sending a song to be mixed by someone else, I recommend you go to the actual channels and take off things like EQ and compression that are on a channel. So in other words, when you're sending a stem file, like when I'm receiving files, I want to know, what did you do for sound design? What's the creative part of your sound? What are the LFOs, the filter sweeps, the creative stuff that makes it sound cool? That's what I want to hear. I want to hear your synths, your choice of drums and everything, but I don't want you to smash a limiter on every track and try to turn up the volume loud and have them all crushed to death with limiter and tons of EQ, because then it's like, I don't have any space to make mix decisions. You know what I mean? So I want the full dynamic range, the full frequency range of every sound. You give me the creative stuff that's all moving all around, pan position or whatever, and then I'll put them into the mix together. So that's what we're going to do today. And I like that question because it let me start off with something cool. All right, we got some more people coming in. UC and Rahul, how you doing? Welcome to the show. At any time, if you have questions, type them in. I'll be looking over here to grab questions. I'm happy to go into little tangents and stuff. And I want to start by pointing out what is going on with these markers. You can see up top, these are not song sections. When it says drum effects, that is not like, oh, you know, here's the main drop or whatever. What I did was I went through and identified places in the track where I can find different chunks of sound. So kicks top, these are top kick sounds, like the, you know, the click part of the kick drum. And what is going on in there? Are we even hearing that? Kicks top. Something soloed. Okay, so these guys, that's not a very loud sound. So I went through my session and I put in markers so that when I want to mix each group, the drums group, the cymbals group, miscellaneous percussion, cymbals part 2, snare drums and claps, top kick drums again. What are all those words? Those are all my drum subgroups. Top kicks, snare claps, drum loops. Oh man, drum loops. That is a hot topic for today because each one of those is like a full mix of hi-hats and claps and stuff all by itself. And there's like 6 of them. And then there's like 33 channels of sound going on in here, right? Cool, Patrick, you're welcome. I'm glad you asked that question. That was a good question. So each one of these different pink categories is a group of audio files that I need to mix together. So we're gonna go through the process of doing it. First off, I went to each one, I picked the audio file and turned it up just to show you the starting place. Look at this, that's 24 dB of gain on the audio file right there. Why did I do that? One basic reason, when it's at 0 dB, I can't even see where the damn audio is. I'm like, if you're looking at this audio file, where do you even put the cursor to hear it? It's kind of hard. So I jacked these up 24 dB. Another reason is I'm going to run out of processing power. I'm going to run out of RAM if I try to put some massive, huge VST plugin on every channel and do like gourmet processing. You don't need anything fancy. Just use the built-in Ableton tools to add gain so you can hear the sound, see the sound, visually you find it, you know, and work with it that way. So I went to pretty much every audio file in the mix, turned them up so I could get the maximum signal to noise ratio. What does that mean? That means when you're playing the sound, you want to hear the maximum amount of sound compared to empty space. So what I'm looking at is this little VU meter on the side of the channel. For that to make more sense, let's look at the whole channel group. So now we're playing kicks top. That's just one channel. Let me turn that up nice and loud so we can hear it. And for gain staging in Ableton, these little green VU meters within the device tray are your best friend. That shows the level of sound going through the channel. So like on an analog mixing board, the sound would come in the top. Make sure you can see this, yeah. The sound would come in the top. Up at the top, you have a gain knob, like head amp gain or the main volume level that turns up the sound coming in. Then as it's going through the channel, you want that to be the maximum loudness without distortion. When you get to the bottom of the channel, that's your output volume. So this volume fader is controlling how much of this channel goes out to the mix, okay? Just like on the Ableton mixer, these little green VU meters tell you the volume of sound going through that channel strip, like everything inside of group 5. And then this volume is just the the output of like how much of that sound do you want to have going out. So, hey, Lori's here, Ryan's here, cool, what's happening? So the name of the game I'm playing here is to take every single channel in this mix, all 75 channels, get the maximum amount of signal compared to noise. In the analog days, it was called signal to noise because you were getting stuff from microphones that had hiss and background noise in the preamp. You were recording out of cassette tapes or multi-track reel-to-reel tapes where if you didn't record loudly onto the tape, when you went to play it back, you had to turn it up because you didn't record loudly. And guess what? The more you turn it up, the more you get tape, hiss, noise, crap in the signal, crap in the sound, and you don't hear that little hi-hat. So to make a great recording back in the day, you had to turn up everything as loud as possible before it got recorded so that when you play it back, you get the music and not the psss in the background. I know Lori knows a ton about this from many versions of broadcast and communications. So this led to things like compressors, because what does a compressor do? It helps you get a loud signal without exceeding a headroom threshold. Okay, so you don't want to record so loud that you get distortion, because that would be bad. You don't want to record so quietly that you get tons of background noise, because that's bad. The happy medium, the happy medium, is getting the right signal to noise ratio. And this one concept is going to help you mix everything so much better because it lets you hear each sound in the mix, not miss anything, and get them all sounding good, no distortion, blah blah blah. So to make this interesting, I'm going to keep our bass line and kick drum channel open. And if you haven't mixed with me before, I use subgroups. So all these drums are coming into one stereo pair at the end. All my low end is coming in on kick and bass on channel 81. Over on 83 is the instrument group, which is not part of the show today. And then the other one on channel 84 is effects bus of a bunch of synth return effects and stuff. So now I want to work with, I'm going to show you what I did with the top kicks group. So to make sure I have some sound to work with, I'm doing an arrangement loop because I'm working with top kicks, just these two. Name of the game, get each one up loud and get them into the mix so that within this group, I can hear them both. Okay? There's our basic kick drum and bass line. And we want to add that click on top. So I basically leveled these two sounds at the channel level, panned them apart in stereo because they're both happening at the same time. Every time I see these two sounds, you always get both of them through the whole track, which means I'm going to widen them out in stereo to make the kick drum feel like part of the stereo mix, even though the low end of the kick is in mono. And by the way, the reason the kick drum sounds so weird right now is that we're not actually hearing the main part of the kick drum that's in the track. Like, there's a whole low end kick drum that I'm not really presenting very loud right now for broadcast reasons. Okay. I'm watching my broadcast meters over here. And you hear that part, there's like a breakdown section. All right. And our top kick drums. So what did I do? I went to every kick drum channel, made sure that the green meters are bouncing up as close to the top as possible without being super quiet. Then for my effects, I'm trying to mix all my drums with only an effects rack on the group level. So we've got those two coming in, and I added some more gain at the utility plugin. High pass filter, these are not bass sounds, so I went up to like 200 hertz, decided to put that there. Leaving the gate off. Compression. Peter Parker, how you doing? I want a pretty quick attack time, and I wanted to make these like feel real snappy. So you don't want to crush the transients, and you don't need a ton of compression. And then for EQ decisions, a little bit of a dip, a little bit of a boost at 2K, and that's it. It doesn't really need a ton of EQ. This is a pretty fast group to work through because it's really just one snappy little sound. But let's check it out. We also have these other two sounds, the Mossy kick and the top kick 3. A little bit of a clicky one, and that one that's called the Mossy kick. And those are really the ones that needed some EQ. And I'm not sure if you can hear that on your side, but taking those into space. Then the last step was really basically to just compare these two, which happen kind of as a group, with these two, so that when they're coming through the top kick group, the pink group, I want to make sure that this group is balanced. And we're going to go through this and do this on every channel. So these two, use your meters. Don't worry about what it feels like, what it sounds like. Just go straight to your meters. Click that peak meter and reset it every time. Looks like it's coming up around -9.8, -10. So we go to a section with this other kick group. Click the meters, coming around -7, which is a little too loud compared to the other one. So let's take those down, reset our meters. Huh, that's louder than I thought. And I'm kind of just doing the sound by ear, get these two balanced. Every sound in the mix is there for a reason. It all adds something that you want to have. So I'm getting these two, so they basically make everything, so that when everything in the kick top group is playing, channel's peaking around 9.6, ready to move on. That's all I wanted to do. Detailed EQ, detailed volume, whatever else between those two. I'm not going to worry about it because what did I do already? I did gain staging with the signal to noise ratio. The first step of gain staging is signal to noise ratio, and you can maintain that all the way through. So I went to the audio clips, turned them up. I went to the channel groups, did some stereo pan, and then I went to the volume levels in each channel. I adjusted the volume a little bit. So on my master channel for this group, you could think of track 5 as like the master of kicks top. I already did a whole bunch of actual amazing processing. If this was on an analog board, let's say I had all those 4 drums coming in here, head amp gain, that's like adjusting Ableton track volume on the little track, you know, the plus 24 dB parameter. EQing right there, stereo panning right there, volume right there, assigned to master bus down at the bottom. All the things that I'm doing in live that are like the simple, basic, dumb things without even hardly any plugins, those used to all happen on analog channels. Imagine if we had a 75 channel mix and I had a 75 channel mixing board and every channel coming down. I was like, oh, preamp gain, oh, EQ, stereo pan, volume adjustment. If I had only those mix tools, I could make an amazing track, and probably 70 years of music happened with nothing more than those, and then a master channel compressor, and they would record the track. So you have amazingly powerful tools without even dropping any plugins, just from the built-in stuff. That was the point of that section. So let's go to some a little bit more interesting beats maybe. Can mute those down for a little bit. Let's hit up the snare claps because everybody likes to hear those come into the track. Where are they? Oh my gosh, I have to find them. Thank God I'm organized. Loop, loop, loop. Snare claps going on. And what am I talking about? Going to this group right here. And I looped a section where you can see all these audio files have something going on in that loop, which is going to make it easy to mix, except for this one right here. And do we have low end here? We do have low end here. All right. So the same thing. The process is go to each audio file and add enough gain right at the audio file level so you can hear what's going on in that channel. 12 dB plus 24 plus 0 plus 0 plus 24. Do we need anything on track 14? That is a little bit skimpy, but let's go up 9. How about 13? Nice little high frequency, little kind of snappy little cute thing there going on. Okay. And you can always look at the VU meter for one sound, even if you have no plugins. Each one of these audio files, you can see the level of what sound is coming through that channel. Signal to noise ratio, keep that in the green, not in the red, you'll be good. Now, each one of these is adding something to the track. What is it adding? What's going on? Well, let's start with 12 and 13. How come those are stereo panned like that? They're kind of part of the same thing, but it's called pre-clap and clap. So I thought I'll spread those apart. That snare is like the main one, so I drag that first in the group. And then I'm strategically going to add in the other sounds. Get them going so I can hear everything, so I can use each sound. '11 and 13 are really in a very similar frequency range. So So I got to add more 13 to get it to sound right. 14 is in the same kind of frequency range. So I'm going to undo this thing. I think 12 is going to go straight up. 13 and 14 are going to go opposite. So when these are both in, they're going to spread the drums out wider and complement that main snare. So right now I'm looking at the stereo meters in track 10. Make sure that when 13 and 14 are on, we can hear them both pretty much balanced. Bring in 11. And we're still left heavy. Why is that? Just looking at my stereo meters on track 10. There, so now you can see track 10 has a balanced stereo image with two sounds that are wide apart and a center one holding it together. And that little... Track 12 is cool because it leads you into the beat. It's like ba-doom, ba-doom, ba-doom. So 12 can be nice and loud. Now I've got a balanced stereo group. I can hear the rhythm that's happening from each channel in that mix. Every little part of that mix is doing something useful. And let's back this loop out and hear what we're doing on the track 15. Ah, one of those. And that can be nice and loud because it doesn't happen very often. It's kind of like a riser. So now that we've done basic gain staging, signal to noise ratio, stereo panning, balancing the stereo field, and leveling with the volume faders, kind of like our analog model thing. Now we can run through some channels on the board, channels in the channel strip, and look at what we did, why did I make those decisions, and what's going on. I really want to get to this drum loops group because that's going to be a fun one, but this is important stuff to run through. Let me know if this is useful for you. This is something you could do. You don't have to have audio stems to make a mix like this. This could very easily be snare, claps, drum rack, where each one of these would be one layer in the drum rack, and you'd have to do the same exact thing. It would come from a sample. You would have simpler, or the instrument, the Ableton instrument called sampler or simpler in the drum rack. You would be doing the same things, like how loud is my sample? Do you understand what I'm saying about that? Each one of these things right now, I know it looks like a big long audio file, but as far as your computer knows, that's a little piece of digital audio. When the cursor gets here, the computer says, turn that into sound and send it out the speakers. So for me, a long stem of audio versus a drum rack of MIDI samples is not that different. You could take each one of these, chop that up, drag that into a drum rack, and make it a MIDI instrument so you could replay the drums with MIDI hits. But ultimately, inside your computer, it's all digital audio. It's all coming out the audio interface. So it doesn't make a very big difference if you think like, oh my God, 75 stems, I don't know what to do. It's like, no, dude, that's the same as a big ass drum rack with a sample pack in it, and you're just using some of the samples. So don't get intimidated. That's also why I'm showing you this effects rack on the snare claps thing. Because this is something like if this was a MIDI drum rack, you would just drop some plugins on it, right? So, is Steve talking too much? The answer is yes. Let's listen to some music. Juicy, cool, thank you. I'm not sure how to say your name, but Juicy sounds like a fun way to say it. I'm not making fun of you. I think it's cool. High pass filter around 155, because I pretty much know I don't want any bass coming through this this sound group. And if I look at the EQ8 effects unit, put the mouse on the cursor, look in the little box, read the frequency. That low end of this snare drum group is around 170. So I figure if I put the high pass filter at 150, not losing anything. The utility utility plugin, I'm not doing anything with this. I don't need that plugin. Instead, I'm going to go to high pass filter and add some drive on there to get some of that analog modeled filter sound from the auto filter plugin, which I love. Now compression. And what I like to tell everybody about compression is you should always use two hands on a compressor for the health and safety of your ears and to get a better understanding of what you're doing. And those two knobs are threshold and makeup gain. The reason is threshold is going to duck the volume down, and makeup gain gives you volume back. So what I want to do is I want to hear the drum group, the snares group at the same overall volume while I'm compressing it, so I can make a real decision about compression and not just say, oh, I like it louder. Because anytime you make it louder, you're probably gonna like it better. So it's better to try and ride the volume with threshold and makeup gain are opposite. Threshold goes down, gain reduction goes down, you balance it with makeup gain. Likewise, if I decide that's too much threshold and I start backing it off, I gotta turn the compressor gain down or else it's gonna get super loud. You know what I'm saying? If I'm here with 18 dB of gain, if I just undo that threshold, it's gonna get crazy loud. So use those two together. And what's my strategy here? First, I'm gonna do way too much compression. I really want you to hear this with a super short attack time. You almost can't hear it. Now, as I open the attack time, this is gonna tell me how to set the attack time because I'll start to hear it coming through. Hear that? With 26 millisecond attack time, the snaps are coming through on the front of those sounds. With a super short attack time, it's like crushing it instantly. You don't get any transients. So we want an attack time that's long enough to hear those attack transients coming through, and a release time that's nice and short so the gain reduction gets off it after every hit. So for drums where you want a snappy drum sound, make a long attack time, 30 milliseconds or longer. That's not long, but it's mid-long. Short release time so the gain reduction gets off it after every hit. And then once you've got the attack and release set with extreme gain reduction, now we can back off the threshold, kind of go back to normal, listen to our drums, and dial in the compression in the mix. All right, so we got our mix happening. I'm gonna turn my headphones up. I like this part. And there we go. So now we're taking that whole drum group that we already did the volume balancing on the snares. So I know that they're pretty much, I didn't super measure it, but we did the stereo imaging. We listened to it. I can hear all the layers and it's all sounding good. So now when I'm hitting it with the compressor, I know I'm getting all that stuff like nice and like right in there in the same space so we can hear it. What did I do with EQ? It looks like Steve did some EQing. I did this yesterday, so I don't remember each band. Okay. Do you hear that difference? Type in EQ if you can hear the difference of on off. For a band by band review, I hope that's not too loud for you. Band 4, why? What am I doing? Do I want that in the mix? No, I do not. Band 4. So my EQ decisions, I pick a band, boost it up, listen for something I don't like. That sounds like it's echoing inside a plastic tube. Kevin Allen, thank you. So I'm looking for places to cut. Band 5, what's going on? Why did I cut that? What's wrong with that part? Ooh. Oh my God. Again, kind of metallic. Looking for zones to cut out stuff that I don't like, and then also frequency bands to boost up stuff that I do like. And before I boost anything, I like to bring in the rest of the mix and really hear like, and look for what's a cool part of the track or the group that I want to get a little more out of. Pro tip, when you're working with snare drums and hand claps, 2 kilohertz is usually kind of a cool area. And with boosting, it's better to use a kind of a wide Q, like 1.5 for a natural sounding boost that's not all extreme. And when you're doing cuts, use a deeper cut to tune in on the exact frequency you don't like and really notch it out. So when you're cutting, go with a high Q. When you're boosting, go with a wide Q to get a natural sound that you get kind of what you want without going too crazy with it. Other EQ decisions, and I don't know if I'm gonna have time to go very deep on all the channels because we're still only on the snare drum group, but band 7 is cutting out that high that kind of makes you blink. It's like, it's like too, almost makes you flinch. And then band 8, a little bit of high end. So there we go. That's basic compression and EQ on a drum group of snare drums. Limiter is off because I don't want to kill that attack transient. It's tempting to turn this up and be like, oh, I like it better because it's louder. But actually, every time that limiter hits, you're taking off that spike on the front of the snare drums. It makes it cut through the mix. So you don't want to do that. So what do we got? Kick tops. Here's our plain kick drum. And that's what we got so far. So let's move on to the drum loops group. I'm gonna mute 5 and 10 so we can work with these. Not you, you. Channel 16. This one was a challenge for me because I'm gonna mute the lows. Listen to how all these tracks are like a full mix, right? What's up, Taylor? 21. 21 kind of sounds like what we just did with channel 10, right? The snare clap loop group. And again, when I'm working with a whole pile of drum loops, I got to make some decisions, and I got to know how to make those decisions. Where do I find this stuff in the mix? So what I do is, oh, that's crazy loud. This is the drum loops section. I go to expand to the whole view of the whole song and find a place where all these loops are in, so I can hear them together, hear how they fit together, figure out what to chop out of each one, and get them into the mix. And this is great because this loop right here has all those drums. Jay's in there with us. What's going on, man? Mike's coming in a bit hot. All right, thank you. That's good to know. I can definitely turn that down. I love having an analog board. It's so easy to mix levels for broadcast and stuff. Yeah, thank you for telling me that. And so, process. I went to every channel in here. I looked at the original level, and a lot of these needed gain. For example, track 21 right here was not very full in that channel. So now it's like coming right up to the top, not going into the red. I did that with all those to make sure that each audio file was turned up as loud as I could get it without clipping. And I didn't go crazy up to the edge, but just, you know, basically so I could hear each one. And then I cut them all out and tried to figure out what is the most important loop in here. And for me, '18 is it. If I had to listen to this record with only one drum loop, like 17 is cool, but that's kind of like a secondary sound. 18 is sort of doing it for me. 19 is a lot like 17, right? So, and it looks like 17 already has some stereo pan, but I'm gonna push that a little bit more and go opposite with 19 because they're doing a similar rhythm. Wow. And 20 and 18 are kind of, 20 might be a mix of the whole drums all together. I'm not sure. Wow, that's cool. Yeah, 21's a heavy hitter. So I'm already getting confused. So I'm going to take these and rearrange them so that within the group 16, what I'm looking to do is go in order of priority. So, my God, cursor, come on. So I got that loop working. Got those little side shuffle kind of loops. All right, and that's 21 is like a riser kind of crash thing. Ooh, and that has that 909 ride sound in there. And I'm not sure how to use that track yet. So what I'm gonna do is volume down on everybody. Get some okay. Now 19 and 20 are not that powerful, so instead of jacking them up, I'm gonna take 17 and 18 down. So I can bring back that snare if I need more of it. Get these shufflers up in the kind of peripheral vision. And that's a crazy sound. 21 has a lot more going on than it appears. I hear some tom in there. That's a sound that I want to do individual compression because there's so much inside this loop. And that EQ is going to get some high frequency boost. Got my preset something nearby the settings with medium slow attack time. And remember I was saying that sound that makes you flinch? It's about to happen right here. I like the white noise sound of that, but that's a little too piercing. And just for curiosity, okay, look at that tom thing happening. Boom. Almost down to like 100 hertz. I can be cool with that, but I don't want it very much lower than that. So I'm just gonna drop this up to like 90-ish. So, you know, it's okay for me for this drum loop to have a little bit of low end in there to give it some body, but I don't want it to be getting in the way of the bass line and kick drum. And this one has that cool upbeat. What's on 22? I feel the same way about that one as the other one. So you know what I'm gonna do? Copy these two plugins, drop them on the next track. Oh my gosh, it's 12:45. I try to keep these videos as short as I can. Let me know if you're still down with what I'm doing. I'm just sort of like mixing drums. So 21 has the upbeat that I like. That's cool. 22. What I really like is that ride. Like, we have so much snare going on in this whole song already. I don't feel like we even need more snares and stuff. Sounds dope, thank you. So, my strategy on track 22 is, can I get that ride up and on top? Just a little bit of high frequency ride deal happening. Now let's get that upbeat. Don't need tons of that. 21, 20 and 19 are like a pair. The shufflers. And then our main kind of body sounds are coming together like that. So that's a pretty cool mix of all these drum loops where I was trying to find out what is unique about each loop. How do I put it in the stereo field? How do I filter it, EQ it, compress it, make it do something useful instead of just being a blob of like all together. By themselves, each one of those loops with a kick drum could be a cool track. So that's actually a pretty hard challenge to do. It's like if you have, Kevin, I'll be here till 1. All right, cool. I'll keep going. And if we can get through the other half of the drum mix, we'll do that. Now I've got my whole snare drum group ready to go. It's sounding a little bit high and piercing. In fact, 22 is too much of that. So do I need utility? No. Do I need high pass filter? Oh my God, I'm sorry. Ow. That drive was up too loud. That scared me even. Gotta be careful. Let's put the high pass filter just up around 90 or something like that. Don't need anything with the gate. Compression, channel strip, threshold, and makeup gain together. Same kind of thing. Do a bunch of compression, then back it off. Did I mix the bass? Yeah, that was the first thing I did. The bass was on track 2, and it didn't need a ton of work. The main bass note's around 50 hertz, so I put the high pass filter up around 48. Did a bunch of gain staging to get it up louder. Tiny amount of compression. The biggest thing I did on this that was kind of fun was bass mono, right? Now this is coming out of mono output on the board, so you're not gonna hear that. But I made a point to put the bass mono in at 220 so that the upper level, that doesn't make any sense to have it coming out of mono channel. It would be cool to have a copy of this bass line where the upper frequencies are stereo width, like spread apart a little bit. But that's how I put that together. And I didn't even do very much EQing on it. That bass line was kind of ready to go. That's an intro part of the kick drum. There we go. That's the kick drum. So on the kick, similar kind of thing. I looked at what the lowest part is. It's around 50 hertz. So I put the high pass filter in at 45. Mono switch on the kick drum. Not using the gate, but I think I did the transient trick on this kick drum because this had a long tail. That low rumble, almost like a techno kick. So in my warp mode, I chose beats, transient, preserve, the transients that play through and stop, not that repeat. And then by dialing this down, you can kind of cut off the tail in a more precise way that works better than a gate. And that was really important. That little thing I did right there was the most important edit I did on the kick drum to make it fit with the bass line so they hang together and sound like this. Then kick drum EQ, a couple little boosts. Take a screenshot. 73, 129 boost, dipped out, 270, 615. And then, like with the snare drum group, right around 2K, 1.8, something like that. A little bit of a lift in there. So I hope that answers your question about our low end. Let's see what we got of everything so far. Because I know these, channel 16, this drum group has a lot going on, and I'm not gonna really be able to make decisions on this until I hear everything else. Here's our whole drum group. I mean, our whole drum channel. And what was I doing? I was just getting on a little bit of compression and that might get some EQ. I don't really like to just do preset EQ frequencies, but I'm pretty sure you can always cut out 600 and it's not gonna, on drums, you can always cut out 600. So a little bit of EQing, a little bit of compression. And honestly, once you do the basic leveling of your channels and everything, you don't need a ton of extra stuff on there. Hi-hats. How do I quickly mix hi-hats? I do some prep and make sure I have a loop where I can find the hi-hats. So hi-hat loop. In other words, I'm looking at the hi-hat audio files in the session, asking the question, where are the hi-hats in this music? Where do I hear the hi-hats? Where do they show up? Got 4 channels. I went through and turned them up a bunch. If you missed the beginning, like look at track 27. There is nothing there. You like can't tell that there's sound there. So I dropped some markers, found a place in the track where all these hi-hats are coming through, and then figured out what's the most important one. Well, clearly 24 is, because that's like main hi-hat. 27. And then 25 and 26 come in to sort of say hi once in a while. I like 25. It's like tick. Now on my hi-hat main group, do I need low end in the hi-hats? No, I do not. I can go up almost to 1K with those. And I'm not even going to worry about compression or anything. I'm just going to roll this down, bring it up in the mix, get it so I can hear it. And that's interesting because that hi-hat's on the downbeat. which gives it that Swedish House Mafia feel where it's like when that ride cymbal is like ching, ching, ching. All right, if I can hear 25 coming through right now, I'm gonna be happy. Yep, good to go. Let's move on. Quiqua. This is a little private stereo group, just 2 files, doing an upbeat kind of shuffle thing. I went through the same routine, go to each channel. Oh my gosh, oh no, these are too quiet. What am I gonna do? Well, I'm gonna go to 29 and 30. Look at those audio files, they're so skinny and mini. Grab these, jack them up until you get something out of it. It's like squeezing an orange or something. It's like, where's my sound? Now you can see at least there's some healthy level coming through that channel. And why did I stereo pan them? Well, because I listened to it and I saw that they were already kind of like stereo panned a bit. So I guess I could set those apart right here. Now my master channel is clipping like crazy. Grab these 2, bring them on down. Gain staging again. So now this track 28 is the one where I want to have the maximum amount of signal to noise. So with the channels inside the group, turn them up until the group is up near peak, not clipping, and then you preserve your signal to noise ratio all the way through. So checking signal to noise, it's not just something you do on the original audio file. You do it first on the single channel, second on the bus group of things together, third all the way at the master channel of all your bus groups coming together to make the mix. It's gain staging is something you do every place you have an option to change the volume, you can do gain staging. So it's not just like, you don't just like do it at the end or only at the beginning. It's constant through your whole mix. And these are stereo group. What are they doing in the mix? They're an upbeat. What else was like that? I think track 21. Okay. And the way I like to mix, when I get into a busy mix like this, turn up my monitor volume, which is the channel I'm listening to, and then bring up the new sound. And I'm starting to think that 21 is an audio stem of the whole entire drum kit, because the more I find new channels, the more I'm hearing they're all in 21. So let's kill 21 and basically bring the other ones in there to make the same kind of a thing. This is where it gets kind of challenging. I like 28, so I want it loud, but I know that we're not done yet. We got a lot of other channels, so you don't want to put it up too loud. 31, miscellaneous percussion. What is going on with this track? It's clipping like crazy. Let's bring it in. Mute everybody else. All right. These are all coming through nice and loud. And they're all kind of spiky too. 35 is not as loud. What's happening on 35? Hear that truck go by? Wow, there's tons of gain on 35 and it's still not coming through that much. Boom. There's always a little bit of detective work going on. I have a feeling 35 is going to need some gain and some frequency treatment. So I like auto filter for that because you can go to a vintage circuit filter mode, get some gain out of it. And then once you have that gain, you can see what's it doing in there. I'm going to just do this by ear. I'm not going to look at the meters. All right. 34 is cool. Badoop. Do you hear that? Badoop. A little more on 34. A little more on 34. Again, when I'm turning up a channel, I'm looking at the VU meter of the channel level to make sure it's nice and loud within the channel container. 34, need some more. That's up 24 dB of gain. So Mats Moreland, this is his track. Thanks, Mats, for sharing this with us. He did a good job to record all the stems with a lot of headroom, but it does make it take some attention to get them all, to get a hold of them all. So 33. And what does this mean in the mix? Ah, there you go. What? This is a cool group because it's got such random sound and it's kind of low frequency too. So let's get control of this around 95. Let the lows live in here. We're in a stereo group, so I can go bass mono 120. That'll be cool. This group is definitely a candidate for compression. Little higher ratio because these sounds are hitting pretty hard. And EQing, what are we going to do? Let's get the EQ on. Might help if you turn the thing on. And band 1. All right. Looking for some of that low, mid, scratchy kind of stuff that I don't really need too much of that. And like I said before, on drums, you can almost always cut something out around 600. And I don't mind going to track, going to band 2, playing with this low bumper a little bit. Because remember, on the smaller speakers, everything around 100 hertz is going to sound like the kick drum, and you're not even going to hear sub-frequencies. So let's let this track be a bunch of the fun stuff around the 120 zone. And we have so much other high frequency in this drum unit already with all the hi-hats, shakers, hand claps, and snares. It's nice to have a mid-range body kind of thing going on that doesn't need to compete against any of the highs. So to play with that, I'm just going to shelf down that high end a little bit and bring it back in the mix. Oh, Yusi, thanks for hanging out with us. Check the replay later. Now the question I'm asking is, when I open up 31, do I hear all those tracks in what we're listening to? Yeah, 36 a little too loud. And let's go on. Can we get at least through the cymbals before I have to pee? Check it out. Cool. So, same question. This is kind of a technical, repetitive day, but this is really what it's like doing a mix session. Get organized, find out where everything is, and then put it into the mix so you can use it. So, cymbals. 40 and 41, are you here today? Oh, they are. That looks like a stereo pair if I ever saw one. Yo, dude. So my question is, when I see files like this, was this a stereo file that got exported as split mono? No. I mean, it's not exactly the same like you can hear sometimes, but it's damn close. And I like what it's doing. So let's bring it in like a stereo pair. It's pretty close to matched. I'm good with that. Not going to go crazy. What's on 39? Oh, Eric Morales, good point. Bandcamp is waiving their sales commission, so all sales go directly to artists and labels. Go support your favorite producers and labels. Yeah, I'm totally open to that. Anybody who's making music on Bandcamp, you can put a link into the MIXITECTURE Facebook group right now and put them in there and be like, hey, this is my Bandcamp link. Why don't we share those? It's a good moment to do that. I'm down with that. Thanks, Eric. What's on 39, dude? Yeah, no, that's not a shameless plug, man. I have no problem. My favorite thing is when people come to this group, to the MIXITECTURE world, and they're like, here's a track I made. I'm really proud of it. And then we give everybody feedback. The people who get feedback and publish a track, I promote the shit out of that because I just love it that people can like get some community help and end up with a finished piece of music to share. Like when somebody, the bad way to do it is like if somebody comes in for the first time, never posts, never comments, never interacts, and they're like, listen to my new album. Then we're like, dude, you're missing the point. You know what I mean? I know you guys understand. So what is cool? What, 39? This is like some like weird techie kind of loop. And it really helps me out to have markers up top. Like imagine if you're doing a mix session with band in the room, producers in the room, clients in the room, and you're trying to do this stuff and you're like, where's my cymbals? I don't know. It really helps a lot to do a little bit of prep and get, at least get your hands on the sounds so you can find them when you want. Is this sound loud enough? How do we know? Well, we look at the input meter. I'm talking about the cymbals on 39. So just click on the audio file, look at the little tiny VU meter. It shows the level coming through and see, can I add some more gain? I can see visually that it's a pretty constant sound. Oh, it's already up at 24 dB. Needs volume. So let's bring up this bus group, bring down our crazy loud crash, and fade these up. So the game I'm playing now is keep 39 up nice and loud, make use of 40 and 41, but don't put 40 and 41 up so loud that it hurts. Okay, then what's on 38? Where are you? 38 is in somewhere else. Oh, cymbal 2. How you like that? Don't unmute with the volume up. Oh, that's so cool. Miscellaneous percussion is too loud. I just saw that channel spike, the group channel. Yeah, what are you doing on 34? Did I like... Huh. This is why it takes a long time to mix a big track, because there's just a ton of stuff going on. All right, that's getting the limiter on there. Looks like 34 has some loud stuff and some quiet stuff, right? I don't know how though. Okay. Sometimes it's like crazy loud, sometimes it's not. I did like it with that crunchy distortion on there though. All right, that might have been one where I accidentally did that wrong by mistake. We're all good, got the limiter switched on. I don't really want to crush the limiter, I just want it to be working, so we'll just add like a dB of that. Back to the cymbal group. Are they making sense? Right on cue. I like it, I like it. Yeah. That's working well. Let's check our cymbal crash coming in right here. Dun, 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 dun. And 40 and 41 can come up a little bit because we did not yet really work with this channel. It's got gain, it's got... Where was that snare drum build that just came in? Did you hear that? I don't know where that snare drum is. I'm not gonna worry about it. Now I just want to hit the compression on that cymbal thing that is right here. And notice that on this ride channel, there's a little tiny thing before the crash. So let's get that in the loop. And that can be a 2-bar loop. Compression coming down. And there's so much detail inside of 40 and 41. there's like a kind of a thing happening. So I'm okay with squashing this channel with some pretty hard compression because I want to do a lot of makeup gain and really get that little sound out. So I'm going to go shorter attack time, a little higher ratio, and let that sound get some level. Feels like something's missing. I think it's because where we are in the track. Yeah. Notice that the hi-hats were clipping a little bit. Where are we in the song? What do you hear? Tell me what you hear. This is the part where I gotta kind of like sit with the track and hang out and be like, what do I need more of? What is there too much of? I might actually cut everything back, kind of get back to the core of like what the really fun part is. Like maybe it's just these and go a little louder and then surround them with other sounds. Maybe I don't need so much of each thing. Huh. Now I'm playing a little game of how low can I keep these faders and still get something out of it. Just for fun now, let's go to our drum reverb and just bring that in and see what we get. Probably that's gonna need some high pass. Wow, cool. Where'd that come from? You can always compress your reverbs a little bit. Okay, let's leave that at that. All right. So thanks for hanging out with me today. That's been about an hour of doing some intense technical drum mixing. Let me go back to camera land. Camera land. There we go. Headphones are loud. We're at the part where I'm kind of like, I've been in headphones for a while. My ears are a little sweaty, and it's not always possible to make a perfect mix while you're in headphones, also while you're hearing your own voice talking and monitoring lots of other things. But let me know if you have any questions for the end of this video. We did a bunch of gain staging today, and if I can make this a point again, most of what I was doing was a digital version of the analog mixing board. So if you imagine all these channels were coming in at the top, the first step is signal to noise ratio. Add gain with the trim knob to take the level inside the channel, get it up to the maximum level it can be without clipping inside each channel. Then we went through EQ. Notice up here, there's a low cut switch. I don't know if you can see it, but that little switch right under the gain knob is your high pass filter, preset at 100 Hertz. So if you're doing a bunch of vocals, you hit those high pass switches, you don't even have to use your EQ. Or you could, more to the point, you could use your EQ for different frequencies so you don't have to waste one band of EQ on the low cut. So add gain for signal to noise ratio. Cut low frequencies where you don't need them, clear up the mud so the kick drum can be bigger and the rest of the track can breathe. Then we went through and we did some compression, which is not on this board, but well, we did some compression, we did some EQing, and then so much of the mix in all those different subgroups, we just did with pan position and volume by looking at the meters in each subgroup, getting all the sounds in that group to be balanced so they're at around the right level, spreading them apart in the stereo field, especially when you find two sounds that are similar, spread them apart to get extra width, more space in the sound, and empty out a zone in the center for your main hand clap or snare drum or whatever. So like shakers, little ride cymbals, little ticky things, those go on the sides. So up front, you can be like clap, snare, whatever, kick drum. And then once you have all your subgroups aligned, leveled, spread in stereo, then you can go through and just like I did at the end, I took the main subgroup, put it up there, and I took the other ones and blended them up around it, just so I could hear enough of each one, so it's not a big competition. And in my main Ableton window, let me go back and just review at the group level. All these pink channels, right? They're coming over to the drums bus. And check this out. The drums output bus still has like tons of space, 4 dB of headroom. So I'm not jacking the volume on that level. And these are not going to the master because I have them all split out to analog outputs. But the idea is that this whole drums group right here is one stereo pair with all my drums. And it makes it so easy to get a nice sounding master channel mix over here because everything is like, I can hear everything, nothing is getting crazy spiked out, and nothing important is getting too quiet. It's so quiet that it gets lost. That's kind of the strategy, is just make best use of everything you have, bring it all together so by the end, you got a track. Tomorrow we're gonna work on the pianos and synths, do the same thing with them, gain staging, frequency pan, volume, mix level, compression, and by the end we'll have a track. So last little note here. Let me bring these down a little bit. I want to do a little plug for the MIXITECTURE member site, courses.mixitecture.com. This has all kinds of free Ableton freebies and the free resources, and there are some really interesting courses that you can get into for a pay-what-you-want price model right now. Because we're in quarantine, I know a lot of people are not making money, so I wanted to make it really easy for you to grab these. Some of them have price zero, other ones are like 10 or 15 bucks. They should be like $100 each. For the value of what you get out of these, there's real audio engineering, there's tons of electronic production knowledge that comes back from the 90s when I was working with synthesizers, samplers, sequencers, and a mixing board in all MIDI hardware. Now it all transfers to Ableton, so you can learn about the core elements of electronic music. You can learn about how to escape the 8-bar loop, which is always fun. A whole bunch of stuff on sound design, oscillators, filters, envelopes, LFOs. I really recommend the basics of EQ. If you like what we did today with drum mixing, this course will help you. There's tons of audio engineering in there with really simple presets for every channel in a mix of electronic music. It's specially designed for electronic producers, and it takes a complicated thing, makes it really easy by telling you how we hear music, how our ears react to frequency, and what frequencies to cut and boost to make it sound good. We've also got some intro stuff. There's a great sidechain course. A new one is Harmony for Ableton Live users that I'm building hands-on guided projects where you can actually start learning music theory, scales, chords, bass lines, leads, melodies inside of Ableton with guided projects that look like this. So when you open up the project, you see audio instructions, examples with automation to show you what's going on, and then activities to do it. Yeah, Alex, sure. Drum bus. Gonna put my plug in before my Spectrum Analyzer. Let's turn this up. Ready? Tell me if you hear that. let's try this. All right. Whoa. Yeah, let's push that a little bit. I'm glad you asked me that. I didn't think of doing that, but could go a little wider with that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Bang. So, what was I saying? Oh yeah, I was in the member site giving you a little tour. The Harmony lesson is a guided Ableton project that you grab and you learn by doing it inside live to actually learn how to play the keyboard, get the ideas out of your head and into the speakers. And if you like this and you want to help support MIXITECTURE every month, at the top there is a little button for support MIXITECTURE on Patreon where you can sign up for $10 a month or pay what you want and get access to the archive of custom Ableton sounds. This is only available for people who are monthly supporters. I wanted to give you a little something extra. So I export channel strips, sounds, instruments, effects racks, special little things that I build with custom macro mapping, like you saw those macros I've been using all day. And you get access to this with categories for basses and subs, drum racks, instruments, synths, effects units, and I'm adding to it constantly while I'm producing my own tracks. The reason you want to do this is because I'm doing daily live videos at 12 to show you how I mix real projects, how I take my own music and get it finished so it's done, like with sound design, song structure, and mixing, as well as going through all the courses on this platform that you just saw, like the EQ course, the sidechain course, Escape the 8-bar loop, sound design, essential basics, all those kinds of things. I'm teaching live on video, and the Patreon thing gives you a really easy way to support a little bit to show that you appreciate learning new things to help you make tracks and help me keep going doing this. So thank you to everybody for hanging out and watching. I really like it that we can chill out, do Ableton production, and spend some time together instead of just watching the news and wondering what else is going to happen. I know you know what I mean. So Alex, Eric, yeah, thanks a lot. And probably I'll keep working on this and go live a little bit later on today to show you what else gets done. So if you got a question, type it in. I'll get back on the chat comments to see questions. And that's it for now. Bye, y'all. Thanks for watching.